Today we are going to learn how we can use multiplication to find equivalent fractions. A librarian said 1/2 of the books checked out yesterday were nonfiction. What are some fractions equivalent to 1/2? To find equivalent fractions, multiply a fraction equal to 1. And we talked about yesterday in calendar how any number, if you have a number on the bottom that's your denominator, if you put the same number on top, it's going to be equal to 1 whole. Therefore, when you multiply a fraction by a fraction equivalent to 1, it's not going to change the value. Let's start with multiplying 2 over 2, which is the same thing as 1. So you're going to multiply the numerator and the denominator by 2. So 1/2 times 2 over 2 equals 2/4. 1/2 would be equivalent to 2/4 or the same. If we use the same whole and we divide the box into 2 sections or 4 sections, whether we shade 1 out of 2 or 2 out of 4, you are still shading the same amount. Now let's use this same box and multiply it by 3/3, which is also equal to 1. So we have 1/2 times 3/3, and we're going to get 3/6. We're using the same box. In the first box, we take the box and divide it into 2 equal parts and shade 1. In the next box, which is the same size, we divide that same box into 6 equal parts, but shade 3 of them. Here we can see that 1/2 of the box is shaded here, and 3/6 of the box is shaded here, which is also still equal to 1/2. And the last one, we're going to divide or multiply the same number, 1/2. Whoops. Sorry, I always forget to use the highlighter. We're going to multiply the numerator and denominator by 4. So we're still using 1/2. And this time, we're multiplying it by 4 over 4, which is equal to 1. And we're going to get 4/8. So we have the same box, and here it's shaded in 2 halves, where one of them is shaded. And then over here, it is shaded into 8ths, where 4 of them are shaded. Even though this is 4/8, it's still equal to 1/2. Just the parts are smaller. Let's look at the convince me. Kevin said in each one of the examples above, all you are doing is multiplying by 1. When you multiply by 1, the value does not change. Is Kevin correct? Explain. Well, yes, Kevin is correct, because anytime you multiply a number by 1, you are always going to get the same number. So whether you are using a fraction such as 2 over 2 or 4 over 4 or 10 over 10, as long as the top number and the bottom number are equal, it is going to be equal to 1. And you can multiply any fraction. For example, if we did 2/3 and we multiply both sides by 10, so 10 over 10, we would get 20 over 30. Therefore, 2/3 is the same as 20 over 30. This just tells me that in 2/3, the pieces are going to be bigger than in 20 over 30, the pieces are going to be smaller. Let's do the guided practice together. Use the area model in multiplication to show why 5/6 and 10/12 are equivalent fractions. Well, if we have 5/6 and we have 10/12, think, what number do you multiply to get 5 to 10? Well, you multiply times 2. And then to get from 6 to 12, you also multiply times 2. So if we're multiplying 5 times 2 and 6 times 2, our numerator and denominator are both being multiplied by the same number, then 2 over 2 is equal to 1, and therefore 5/6 is equal to 10/12. Number 2. We're going to use multiplication to explain why 3/4 and 8/12 are not equivalent fractions. Well, if we have 3/4 and we have 8/12, we cannot multiply anything to get from 3 to 8. And to get from 4 to 12, we're multiplying by 3. And 3 times 3 equals 9, not 8. So since we are not multiplying by the same digits, it's not going to be an equivalent fraction. Let's look at number 3. If we use the area model over here, we have 1/2, and it's already written for you. Then, if we look at the other area model, it is separated into four pieces. So since 2 times 2 is 4, 1 times 2 is 2. The other ones are the same that you did yesterday. So think about 4 times 3 is 12, so 3 times 3 is 9. I'm going to write number 4 down here. We have 3/4, and then we want to see what it's equal to with 12 as the denominator. Well, I know 3 times 4 is 12, so then we have to multiply our top times 3, and 3 times 3 would be 9. Number 5. We have 5/5, and then we have 10 over a blank number. Well, I know 5/5 is equal to 1, so this one just has to be equal to 1, so I know I can put a 10. And if I wanted to multiply them, I would multiply both sides by 1. Number 6, we have 3/2, which is going to be an improper fraction since 3 is larger, equals 6 over, well, think in your head. 3 times what is 6? Well, I know 3 times 2 is 6, then I need to multiply 2 times 2 and get 4. And number 7, I have 1/6, and then I have 12. Well, 6 times 2 is 12, so I know 1 times 2 is 2. Go ahead and do the rest of the numbers on this page. On numbers 14 through 21, it tells you to write 2 equivalent fractions. So make sure that you do that. And then when you're done, I'm going to have you work with a partner to check your work and then do the back together.